YouTube family? It's your boy Mike the Businessman, and I'm here with another video. I know it's been a while, but guys, before I even get into this, I want you guys to make sure you like and subscribe. We're trying to hit 10K viewers, so we're almost there, so I need you guys to make sure you subscribe and spread the word about the channel so your boy is motivated to keep putting these content out, dropping gems. All right, so in this video, I want to talk about the biggest challenges that I faced when I started running my car rental business and how I overcame them, right? So let's get right into it, man. Your boy has been through a lot. You know, when I got started, a lot of the information that's out there wasn't really out there. And so I had to learn on my own. I went through all the bumps and the bruises. And so I want to kind of share some of those experiences and the things that I did so y'all don't make the same mistakes that I made, all right? So let's kind of jump right into it, man. So initially, obviously, first thing that I encountered, because my niche was the high luxury and exotic space, and so the first hurdle I had to encounter was, you know, funding. How do I afford these cars, right? And so, man, your boy has been through a lot, man. So initially, when I first started, I had already financed cars in the past, right? Personal cars. Even financed like a $70-something thousand Tesla Model S. Getting financing necessarily wasn't the hardest thing, but you know, I didn't know about the business options and putting it on my business credit and a lot of that stuff, right? So initially I went out there and I bought several cars and I put them on my credit, on my personal credit, right? And so that was the number one major issue right there, because that impacted 30 days later, my credit score tanked, right? At the time, there was just one or two gurus talking about car rentals, and they were all preaching on YouTube to go buy like 30 cars in 30 days and put them all on your personal credit. And so, you know, that trashed my credit completely, right? So that put me in a pickle, and you know, for a while I couldn't get more cars, and then I had to figure out ways to get these things off of my credit. And then that's when I went down a rabbit hole, just discovering how to properly use business credit. And then I had to go move those cars from my personal onto my business to kind of free up my DTI so I could get more cars. So that definitely was the number one issue. So my recommendation to you guys would be, don't have more than 2, maximum 3 cars in your personal credit. You know, because then it looks like it's just for your family, right? If as an individual, you're entitled to have a car. Maybe if you're married, your spouse has a car, and maybe if you have a kid, your kid has a car, right? That doesn't raise any red flags. But when you start to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 cars in your personal credit, no one's gonna give you any more loans, right? So that was the number one thing that I had to learn. Number 2 also was initially when I started too, as far as down payments, I just thought, you know, hey, you know, pay these down payments. And I wasn't really looking for like 0 down options, even though they're not the best because you don't have equity going in. But, you know, sometimes in this business, because we know we're monetizing these cars, they're going to pay for themselves anyway, especially if you bought a car that's in demand. I'm not too worried about that. So initially, I was just putting out down payments for every car. You know, any dealership I went to, oh yeah, 10,000 down, 15,000 down, 20,000 down. And I was dipping into savings, you know, credit cards, and paying these down payments, right? So that was the next thing that was an issue too, right? I started liquidating my savings, just pumping into these cars to get them initially, right? And that's something that now that I know better, and I know if you've got your credit built right, it's not about just having an 800 credit score. It's about, you know, the thickness of your file, right? Do you have enough age to it, enough trade lines in there? And by trade lines, I mean, do you have primary accounts on your credit? Have you gotten, you know, high limit credit cards or installment loans or, you know, things like that? They want to see that you have established credit, because a lot of people these days can finesse the credit system and go, you know, you've never got a credit card or a car and you have an 800 score. No bank's giving you bread with that. You have to beef it up. You know, they don't want you showing up with a 10-page book. No, they want to see that you have a novel, you know, a big book, a lot of pages in that book before they give you in that credit file before they give you funding. So that was the number one hurdle that I encountered, and so I had to learn how to set up my LLC, and then go use my LLC to start getting these cars under my business name. That's when it really just opened up, you know, opportunities to where I could walk in, like my Bentley. I bought that straight up on my business credit, 0 down. I was able to now start making those kind of moves, right? So that was number one thing, number one challenge that I faced. The second one is the scammers and the thieves, y'all. All right, so I got stories for days when it comes to this. I don't think we got enough time in this video, but scammers, man, even just with the financing of these cars too, right? I remember I wanted a Lamborghini Urus, man, and I reached out to this Instagram guru at the time, man, and you know, I'm not gonna say no names, but they popular out there, you know, help people get exotics and all of this stuff, and you know, I tossed a lot of money at this dude, man, just try to get this Urus, and I didn't even really try hard at the time. Then I didn't know, I still didn't understand how to finance these cars very well, and so I tossed a bunch of bread at this guy to get me this Lamborghini Urus, man. I sent him almost $60-something thousand. That's what he asked for. And so he had my bread for almost 4 months, still waiting on this car. His car didn't show up. I think it was like 3 months or some change, 3.5 months. And every day it was this story. Oh yeah, we're about to get it. All the blah, 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 bank's gonna call you today. It was always one story after the next, man. And my money was tied up for months, you know, and I'm not gonna get into too many details so you guys don't kind of put two and two together and know who it is. But, you know, eventually, you know, it almost got to the point where I had to almost start threatening, you know, a lawsuit to get my bread back because they weren't able to deliver nothing. And at the end of the day, you know, I got a bunch of inquiries on my credit, just shotgunned my stuff everywhere. It was just a big mess. And so that was another thing where, you know, you got to be careful out there, guys, who you guys throw money at to go get you cars. Instead, empower yourselves, go fix your credit the right way, and go out yourself and go get these loans. You don't need to pay people to go get your cars, right? So if you have a resisting relationship with a bank, I would go use that, right? Go start from there, and then you know, there's several banks out there that are very happy to give you guys money, especially if you want exotic cars. Some credit unions too are really good. Like Credit Union of Texas is really good with that too. They'll finance these things. So that was another thing I learned the hard way. Another thing too is you know, as far as when the actual rental business, you know, I'm doing high luxury and exotics here, so naturally, you know, scammers are gonna want to get you. You know, it's gonna be you look like a mark to scammers and thieves. They want to come steal your cars. And so initially, when I started, I didn't know what to watch out for, right? So anybody that would flash some money to me, you know, I'm willing to give them the keys to the car, right? You're thinking at this time, it's still early beginnings. You're thinking, hey, I just need to pay my notes, pay my overhead, you know, make some bread. So whatever, you know, like somebody come up to you, they seem like a cool cat, you know, hey, you know, take the car, you know. And so I had to learn the hard way. You know, initially, I didn't even have trackers in cars, man. We'd have people take these cars and you know, we chasing them around trying to get the car back. You know, that was a big one. You know, just having, you know, people. I didn't have trackers in my cars. Essentially, when I first started, right, I didn't know no better, right? You know, so I couldn't trace my cars. Another thing too is just, you know, people that would come looking to steal your vehicles, right? I didn't have any vetting. It was just a matter of, you know, intuition. I was using intuition, and I always hear that, man. People saying, "Oh yeah, you gotta talk to them and see if you can get a vibe from them," and you know, that ain't. You trust, but you verify, right? So it wasn't until we put in processes to where if you don't pass our processes, you're not getting the keys to these cars, right? So initially, you know, especially when starting off, man, I was getting a lot of word of mouth referrals and all of that, and then some of these cats, you know, they're not very reputable people. If initially my avatar at the time were like, you know, this is dope boys, or, you know, people that I don't know where they're getting their money from, you know, but I didn't care as long as they flashed some money, you know. And also it was to be expected too, because then I was doing a lot of marketing like in clubs or, you know, just things like that. So you're attracting that client, you're attracting those type of people, right? Some of them could be questionable. And so, but I didn't have the systems in place to vet these people, right? Not saying that money ain't good, but you still gotta vet these people, right? And so, you know, learned the hard way that, you know, people, you know, scam you trying to steal your cars and stuff like that. So that was another thing, man. So when we put those processes in place where we started vetting customers, all of that almost dropped down to zero, right? To where I don't care if the car sits. I'll let a car sit all freaking month, you know, rather than give it out to scammers. Right, and that's why I always cringe when I see all these guys on Instagram saying, "Oh yeah, your car ran out 30 days, 30 days out of the month." 9 times out of 10, these cats, man, their cars get stolen every day, or you know, something always happens, man. It's all cap. So that was another thing. Just dealing with scammers, man. There's a lot of them, or you know, renters that maybe they start off good, they're renting for months, they're paying you good money, you know, and then all of a sudden they go ghost on you, right? they pretend for a while and get you comfortable, then you drop your guard, and then boom, that's when they hit you with it, right? They convince you to give them a line of credit or a tab, open up a tab for them. Oh yeah, I'm good for it. I mean, I've been renting forever. I made you so much bread. And so you drop your guard down and then something happens. Then they, all of a sudden start paying you, right? And then now all of a sudden they owe you a whole bunch of bread. How do you recover it, right? We're getting things like that. We had customers do that. Had one customer run up almost a $30-something thousand bill, but then we'd already made like 100 bands from him, and then so we dropped our guard, and then boom, he just stopped paying, right? So it's things like that to where now we got processes where like, bro, if you due on Friday, you ain't paid by Friday, close the business, we shutting that car off, and we gonna go take that car back. There's no credit, none of that stuff, right? So we've kind of just tightened up on all of that, and just not getting swayed by that kind of money anymore, where people just toss a lot of bread, because in this business people will. You're gonna get people that want to rent cars for months, exotics for months, right? And I'm not saying it's not good business, it's just you have to make sure you're strict, you remove any emotions, don't get too familiar, don't get too friendly with these people, because that's how they take advantage of you, right? Then once you guys become familiar, and they're like, oh man, I'm good for it, give me an extra week, give me an extra 2 weeks, and then you just never get paid. So piggybacking on that too, like we now had to go get a good lawyer on retainer, because especially after that incident, right? Like now we had to go take him to court, try to get our bread back. So you got to make sure that you're on your P's and Q's, man. There's going to be scammers out there. And finally, just speaking of scammers too, man, it's, we learned not certain payment methods we stopped taking, because of my niche, high luxury exotics, and we vet people well. We don't have issues with credit cards and all, but like Cash App, we don't touch that. Like, we don't touch no Cash App. You better have been, I think we maybe do it with 1 or 2 customers, and these are long-term day ones, and they've been good for it. But Cash App, people could reverse that, so we're very wary of taking things like that. If we don't know you want to pay by credit card, you better have a few forms of ID to make sure that that's your credit card, right? And kind of like, as far as like scamming, it's also learning to listen too, right? That's something we weren't doing. Like when you're on the phone calls and, say a guy calls you and then he says, he wants to rent a car, but then he tells you, oh yeah, it's for my girl, or it's for my grandma, or it's for my mom. You see things like that, those are red flags too, right? But sometimes we get too thirsty for money and we would just take those deals, right? But you know very well that the mom or the girlfriend ain't the one driving that car, because guess what happens when they get into a wreck? Insurance ain't gonna pay if somebody else is using that, right? So it's being mindful of things like that. Another thing we ran into too, true story also, is back in the days when I used to rent out to a lot of these questionable cats, the dope boys, I don't know what the freak they doing, right? I'd ignore it just because, hey, the money's green, right? And yeah, some of them are cool. We got some that are cool, professional, respect our cars, right? But there's still some of them too that a leopard doesn't change its stripes, right? Like they say, or its spots. So they still have that thievery in them. And one day it comes out, right? And some of them might want to all of a sudden pull a fast one on you. I heard a story of a cat was renting from this rental car company for ages, and then he rents the car from the rental car company, goes to sell it to somebody on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, and then collects the bread from him, and then tells the customer, the person that he sold the car to, that, oh, I gotta take the car for maintenance and then we'll get it back to you the next day. And then they come return the car back to the rental car company. Right? And then next thing you know, police come into the rental car company with the person that bought the car, like, hey, this is my car. What are you guys doing with my car? Like, hey, hold up, this is our rental car. And we rented it out to this customer. What are you talking about? Things like this come up, right? Things like this come up, and it's, at the end of the day, it's vetting these clients, right? Knowing who you're handing over your keys to. You got to know your customer, know your client, KYC, right? Because, they might have been good customers forever, but if they're thieves, man, one day they're gonna need some bread, and they're gonna, hey, let me holler at this rental car company I've been doing business with. Maybe I can get them for something, right? So it's things like that. Or we had this one customer, man, he rented out a car, a C8, man, and he was great, man, paying us like almost, I think he was paying almost $4,000 or $5,000 a week on the C8, and he had it for like over a month plus, man, paid us almost $16,000. And one day we get a call, car's in the impound. The car was, the guy was pulled over, and he had guns in the car, and I think they say he was using it for a crime or some crap, right? So car got jammed up in there for weeks before we could get to it. They said we couldn't get to the car until his first court date, right? And so having to deal with all of that, and then, just kind of put a bad taste in our mouth to where we're like, you know what, it's good money, but not all money is good money, right? So we just had to start to vet better and cut out a lot of all of that crap, man, because, it's short term, and you just can't build a sustainable business off of that, right? So that's scammers and thieves, man. I could go on and on about that, but we get these every day. People trying to scam us, man, trying to rent these cars and send you fake insurance and all of that stuff. So you got to be on your P's and Q's, man, and you're good. Next thing, another challenge I faced when I first started too is, and I've been very vocal about this, where I don't know nothing about cars, man. I envy guys that can put cars together, know everything about the engines, and I don't know none of that crap, bro. I just know how to make money off of these things, right? So buying reliable cars, right? That was something for me, and that's a reality for some people, right? There might be some ladies watching this right now, and you don't know nothing about these vehicles either, right? So for me, it was okay. All right, I'm starting a luxury and exotic car, right? Obviously, you gotta have a Maserati. Obviously, you gotta have a McLaren. You gotta have a Bentley, right? So I go in and I buy these cars. I remember I bought 2 Maseratis first month of business. Both of them they were barely 3-year-old cars, or 4-year-old cars, barely had 15,000 miles on them. And these Maseratis, the first week of going out, both customers called me saying vehicle was on the side of the road, it overheated, right? What are the odds of that? Both Maserati Ghiblis, right? And that's me not knowing much about cars at the time, right? Like now I know in hindsight, Maserati is just a broke guy's exotic, right? And then what's worse is, Maserati's European, right? So anything that happens with a Maserati, they gotta ship those parts from Europe. So to get the engines for those cars, they had to replace engines, and luckily they were still under warranty, but that took months to get. Right, and so my cars were out for a long time, and that's when I swore off of my Maserati. I will not touch a Maserati with a 10-foot pole for my rental car business, never, right? So drive great, but never touch them. So that was my experience with that. I had no idea. The next thing that happened to me too, as far as cars, would be my McLaren. When I flew out to McLaren of Charlotte to go buy, I bought my Lamborghini from them, a Huracan, and then also a day later I bought the McLaren from them, and I trusted them. I didn't know what to do at the time. I'm like, hey, it's from a dealership, right? So I just paid for them immediately and hopped on a plane and flew back to Dallas, Texas. And I'm waiting for the McLaren, and a week, 2 weeks, almost a month and a half, still hadn't gotten my car. I'm like, what the freak's going on here? Like, where's my car at? Oh yeah, we had to, because when I first saw the car, it had a little hairline crack on the windshield. They're like, oh yeah, we'll just replace that, and the car will be in Dallas in the next few days, right? We can get that done ASAP. Almost a month plus, car's still not there. And then they're like, oh yeah, some other issues with the engine, this, that, and the third. There was always some problem, and all these issues they say they have to fix in the car. I even had to fly out again. Like, what the freak, And then they put me into another McLaren. It was a 570 GT. And so I get the car, I'm all excited this time, and I stayed around. Now I made sure I saw him drive it into a trailer and come back to me this time. And when I finally got the car, I kid you, a beautiful car. McLaren's a beautiful cars, doors lift up, everything, right? So I'm thinking this would be the perfect car, like it's gonna do numbers, right? And there was a demand for it. But almost every time my McLaren went out, I get a call from the customer, hey, this light came on, or ooh, I tried to put the car in park and the lever just broke off. It's always something with the McLaren to where like you just can't even enjoy the money, right? Because now when that happens, now you gotta go out there to go pick up the car and put them in something else. It just takes too much of your time, costs you money. And that I just swore off of McLarens, and I sold my McLaren off, and I got out the McLaren business, right? So I would never personally buy a McLaren ever again. just because of that experience, right? And then I'm thinking maybe it was isolated to the 570 GT. Fast forward even this year, somebody gave us a 570 S this time around, right? And to rent out for them, and immediately got somebody that took it for almost 3-4 weeks, paying us like, what was it, like maybe $7,000 a week. And same crap happens again, right? Car comes back and the owner's like, oh man, he can hear this or he can hear that. I'm like, oh man, McLarens, like, so I swore off of them, like, because with Lambos, you won't hear a peep out of a Lambo, nothing. Lambo's almost bulletproof, especially the Huracans, right? So for me, it's like, why just in the pursuit of variety, why subject myself to all of that? So that's when I was like, no more. I told my team, we're not doing this no more, and I'm done with McLaren. So I learned my lesson with the McLarens. And finally, the final experience was the Bentleys, right? Bought a Bentley Bentayga, and we had it for maybe 2 months, maybe, and then all of a sudden it just kept stopping. Like, rented out to a customer and stop on the middle of the road. What the freak? We bought this directly from Bentley, CPO, and every time, it just stopped on the road. Battery just died or whatever happened to the car randomly, right? And it was barely a 3-year-old Bentley. And so, Bentley will happily take it back. They come out to tow it, but then guess what? It's staying in Bentley for 2-3 weeks, and then you get it out, you rent it out again, another thing comes up. So we just kept having, issues like that, right? And so I'm just like, yeah, I swore off of Bentleys also because of that. Like, I still got my Bentayga, but yeah, I'm not in the business of Bentleys anymore, just because of that. They're just finickier cars. Won't forget one time where we had an issue and with the engine, and that just turned into almost a $9,000 bill. Insurance, the warranty had, and check this out, the warranty had just expired barely 2 weeks ago. And I told my staff, I was going out of the country, and I told my staff to, hey, please just make sure you take it into Bentley for a routine maintenance. And we were busy, we were slammed that week, he just could not get to it. And then, as God would have it, immediately after it expired, this happened, right? And then had to cough up the 9,000. And that was it for me. I said, I'm not doing the Bentleys anymore. So now it seems to be okay. We found, we took it to a good mechanic now. Everything is straight, but I'm just not in the Bentley business, right? So, and the way to avoid a lot of this stuff too is you go on Google and and go Google whatever car you want to buy. Go Google, Bentley Bentayga reliability ratings or Bentley Bentayga dependability ratings, right? And you'll see websites like, that would Consumer Reports or forums like, Bentley forums, Lamborghini forums, Ferrari forums, where the owners, people that have bought these cars, will tell you their experiences, right? And that's the best way to know about any car you want to buy, so you can know what common problems to expect of these vehicles, and so you can anticipate that, either avoid or to anticipate them, right? So that was a learning experience for me, 100%. Now the next challenge that I had to overcome was dealing with maintenance and repairs, right? Since we're already on that subject, right? We would always be reactive when it came to that. We would rent out a car and then have to have a customer call, like, check engine light came on, right? And obviously, if you're a customer, you paid big money, you paid $1,000 or whatever to rent this car, you don't want to have to experience that. You don't want to see a check engine light come on. You don't know what it is, right? And then that can make you uneasy throughout your trip, so especially if it's like a female customer too, they won't want to touch the car, right? So we were being too reactive. When the customer would complain, we would wait till a customer complained, and then now we would go take the car, go get it, serviced, or go see what's going on. And so we were having a lot of things like that happening. And at the time too, when I first started, we didn't even have, I didn't own an exotic personally before that, like when the second I bought my first Huracan to be my own personal, I immediately started renting it out. Someone offered me a lot of money, I started renting it out. So now though, so I'm still early beginnings, and we're getting, this person, I'm getting customers saying, oh, this happened, this light came on, or this car did this, or this car did that. And so that had us take a step back, and then now we have to put processes in place, like, okay, hey, make sure you're checking the tires regularly, right? Make sure we have a maintenance schedule. When was the last time the maintenance on this car was done? Okay, it's up for maintenance, we should go get that done now. So we anticipate instead, we're more proactive instead of reactionary, right? So those are just a few things that we had to tweak in our processes to make sure that doesn't happen. you know, like with my Lambos, for instance, right? We stay on the maintenance schedules. If any time like an oil light comes on, that's cool, that's normal with the Lambos, right? Even if you might have gotten an oil change today, if you've driven a few miles on it, the oil light will come up again. You just need to top it off with some oil. You don't need to take it back into the shop. So these are things that you kind of learn as you're doing it, right? So, you know, we had to learn the hard way initially, and unfortunately some of these things put a bad taste in your customers' mouths. You don't want to be renting out cars. Don't be that rental car company where all the check engine lights come on when, you know, are always on. You know, you don't want to be that. It just really messes up the experience for the customer. They won't come back, right? Another thing too is a lot of our problems completely disappeared when we found a reliable repair shop, right? We actually, I ain't gonna lie, we even stopped going to the manufacturer service centers just because they would always overprice everything like it. And then they're too slow. Like, you know, we'd go to the manufacturer dealerships and, hey, yeah, the part's gonna take, you know, a month or whatever. Instead, we found another car repair spot that, you know, they're honest, they were actually doing good work. It took us a while. We kissed a lot of frogs, man. We'd have some that would claim they could do it. They'll charge you up front, and then they claim they fixed the car, probably kept having the same problem. And unfortunately, we're in the rental business. I don't drive these cars personally much, so we're finding out that the problem's still there from renters. You know, imagine, say, a car had an overheating problem, you pay somebody good money to fix it, and then a renter takes it out and then it overheats on them. Things like that were happening. So then we found a good company with good prices, and here's the game changer for us too, right? The speed to getting the parts, right? These guys would go to eBay too. They can go on eBay, go get parts on eBay, right? And people will have it shipped out in a day or two, right? Instead of having to wait for the manufacturer to wait to go from the part to come from Italy or whatever, Europe, you know, we can get this a whole lot quicker, and the car is back on the road as soon as possible. Right, so that for us was the biggest game changer. Since we started using these guys, our cars have been tip top. We haven't been having issues, and so that's very imperative too, right? Just when you're starting, make sure you have a good mechanic, that you guys, a body shop or a repair shop that you guys can use for fixing your cars. And that also leads me to the next part about it too, right? Is body shop connections. Initially starting off, car gets hit, you know, then you're scrambling around looking for someone that could help you fix it, right? Now we know where to go. We have people. We can just send them. They'll fix the job. They'll get it done, even on credit. Don't ask us for a dime till it's done. And you know, and then we get the check from insurance. We can easily pay them, or we pay out of pocket and get the car and wait for insurance to pay. But we know they do A+ work to take care of us. We have a place that does wraps too, so car gets fixed, it goes next door, literally. The wrap guy is next door. He just goes next door, gets the wrap put back on, and then the car is back in the fleet. And so that for us has really just alleviated a lot of these problems. And even in our warehouse, we even have, because we are our location, there's also a service center in there, and so now also minor things, they can help us fix those, you know, minor stuff. They take care of that. Major problems, we're going to our main repair shop. Thank you guys very much for watching this. Like I said, we'll most likely break this up into 2 parts. So thank you guys very much, and I'll see you guys on the next one.